Have you ever noticed that the smartest person in the room is often the quietest one? While everyone else rushes to speak, they simply observe, listen, and think. Most people believe talking more makes them look stronger, more confident, more important, but history often tells a different story. Carl Jung believed that the person who understands themselves feels very little need to constantly prove themselves to others, because confidence is rarely loud. It is usually calm. Think about it. Why does a deep river flow so quietly, while a shallow stream makes so much noise? Perhaps the human mind works in a similar way. People who constantly need attention often speak to be noticed, but people who truly know their own value do not need everyone's approval. They let their actions speak first. Psychologists have discovered that good listeners often understand far more than those who speak without thinking. Every conversation contains information, not only in words, but in tone, in facial expressions, in silence. The person who observes usually notices what everyone else completely misses. Carl Jung believed that before trying to understand other people, you must first understand yourself, because the person who cannot control their own emotions will always be controlled by the emotions of others. That is why emotionally intelligent people rarely react immediately. They pause, they think, then they respond. Most people react, very few choose their response. And that small difference can completely change the direction of a conversation. Perhaps silence has never been a sign of weakness. Perhaps it is a sign of self-control. A person who speaks every thought usually gives away their emotions, their plans, their weaknesses. But someone who knows when to remain silent keeps their power. Marcus Aurelius once reminded that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, perhaps for a reason, to listen more than we speak. Maybe the strongest person is not the one who always has the perfect answer. Maybe it is the one who knows exactly when an answer isn't necessary, because sometimes silence says more than words ever could. And perhaps that is why the wisest people have never tried to be the loudest, because every word has value, and people who speak carefully understand that. They know that speaking less makes others listen more closely. Their silence creates curiosity, their calmness creates respect, and their patience allows them to see things that rushed minds never notice. Perhaps real intelligence is not measured by how much you can say, but by how much you understand before saying. They simply become the hardest to ignore. Why do some people answer immediately while others pause for a few seconds before speaking? That short moment may seem unimportant, but according to psychologist Daniel Kahneman, it can completely change the quality of a decision. Kahneman believed that the human mind works in 2 different ways. One is fast, emotional, automatic. The other is slow, careful, logical. Most people live almost entirely inside the first one. They react before thinking. They speak before understanding. They judge before knowing the full story. But people who develop the habit of slowing down often make better decisions, not because they are born more intelligent, but because they give their mind time to think. Think about the last time someone offended you. Your first reaction was probably emotional, maybe anger, maybe frustration, maybe disappointment. But if you wait just a few moments, your response often becomes completely different. That is why emotionally intelligent people rarely allow their first emotion to control their first words. They understand that words cannot be taken back. A single sentence spoken in anger can destroy years of trust. A single calm response can prevent a conflict before it even begins. Perhaps that is why wise people speak slowly, not because they have nothing to say, but because they understand the value of every word. Daniel Kahneman showed that our brain loves shortcuts. It wants fast answers, fast opinions, fast conclusions, but reality is rarely that simple. The people who succeed in business, in relationships, and in life are often those who resist the urge to react immediately. They observe, they listen, they think, then they speak. From the outside, it looks like confidence, but in reality, it is discipline. The discipline to control your own mind before trying to influence someone else's. Perhaps real intelligence is not about thinking faster. Perhaps it is about knowing when to slow down, because the moment you stop reacting to everything, you begin choosing your responses. And that is where real wisdom begins. Maybe silence is not empty. Maybe it is the space where the best thoughts are created, because every pause gives your mind another chance to see what emotion often hides. The strongest people do not control everyone around them. They first learn to control themselves, and perhaps that quiet discipline is what makes their words carry so much weight. And perhaps that is why the people who think deeply never feel the need to fill every moment with words. Have you ever noticed that the loudest person is not always the strongest one, and the quietest person is not always the weakest? Sometimes the greatest strength looks like silence. Philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche believed that people who truly know their own value do not spend their lives trying to convince everyone else, because the need to constantly prove yourself often comes from insecurity, not confidence. A confident person doesn't need to win every argument. They don't need the last word. They don't need everyone to agree with them, because their peace doesn't depend on other people's opinions. Think about a lion. It doesn't walk through the forest roaring every minute. It remains calm. Yet every animal knows its strength. Human beings are often very similar. The people who constantly raise their voices often try to gain attention, but those who possess real confidence rarely need to announce it. Their presence speaks before their words do. Nietzsche believed that solitude was not a punishment. It was a place where the strongest minds were shaped, because when you spend time alone, you begin listening to your own thoughts, not society's, not the crowd's, your own. And that can be uncomfortable. Many people avoid silence, not because silence is empty, but because silence forces them to meet themselves. The person who is comfortable being alone usually becomes less dependent on approval, less afraid of rejection, less controlled by the opinions of strangers. Perhaps that is why quiet people often appear more mysterious, not because they are hiding something, but because they reveal only what matters. Every unnecessary word removed makes every important word carry more weight. Every moment of patience creates more understanding. Every second spent listening builds more wisdom. People, remember how you made them feel, not how many words you used. Sometimes one thoughtful sentence can have more impact than an hour of endless talking. Perhaps real intelligence has never been about speaking the most. Perhaps it has always been about knowing which words are worth saying and which moments are better left in silence, because silence is not the absence of strength. Sometimes it is the clearest proof that strength already exists, and perhaps that is why the wisest people leave people thinking long after the conversation has ended. There is something most people never realize. The strongest person is not the one who wins every argument. It is the one who knows which arguments are not worth having. Psychologist Daniel Goleman, the man who made the idea of emotional intelligence known around the world, believed that success depends not only on IQ, but also on your ability to understand and control your emotions. Think about how many lives have been changed by one moment of uncontrolled anger, one sentence spoken too quickly, one decision made emotionally, one reaction that could never be taken back. Most people believe strength means reacting, but emotional intelligence teaches the opposite. Real strength is choosing not to react. When someone insults you, they expect an emotional response. When someone provokes you, they hope to control your emotions. But the moment you remain calm, you also remain in control. That is why emotionally intelligent people rarely allow other people to decide how they should feel. Their peace doesn't depend on someone else's behavior. It depends on themselves. Daniel Goleman explained that every emotion lasts only a short time, but the decisions made during that emotion can last for years. Perhaps that is why wise people pause, they breathe, they think. Only then do they speak. Silence in those moments is not weakness, it is wisdom. Every unnecessary reaction gives away your power. Every calm response protects it. The people who appear the most confident are often the people who have learned that not everything deserves their attention. Perhaps the greatest victory is not winning against another person. Perhaps it is winning against your own impulses, because the person who controls their emotions cannot easily be controlled by anyone else. Think about the people you truly respect. Are they always speaking, always proving how intelligent they are? Probably not. The people who leave the deepest impression usually speak only when their words can bring value. They understand that silence creates space for observation. Observation creates understanding, and understanding leads to better decisions. Perhaps that is why the most respected people never rush to answer. They first listen carefully. They watch. They think. Only then do they allow their words to carry their true weight. And maybe that is the quiet power people notice without ever understanding where it comes from. Before this video ends, there is one final truth you need to hear. Throughout history, the people who left the greatest impact were rarely the loudest. They were the ones who understood the value of silence. Carl Jung believed that until you understand yourself, your unconscious mind will quietly guide your life, and you will think it is fate. Perhaps the same is true for the words you speak. If every emotion immediately becomes a sentence, then your emotions control you. But when you learn to pause, to think, and to choose your words carefully, something changes. You begin controlling your own mind. And the person who controls their own mind is far more difficult to manipulate. Most people spend years trying to impress everyone around them. But truly wise people spend those years improving themselves. They understand respect cannot be demanded. It is earned, not through loud voices, but through calm actions, not through empty promises, but through consistent character. Perhaps that is why the quietest person is often the one everyone remembers, because people forget most conversations, but they rarely forget someone who made them feel understood, someone who listened before speaking, someone who stayed calm when everyone else lost control. Maybe real intelligence has never been about proving you are right. Maybe it has always been about knowing when speaking adds value and when silence says enough. So the next time you feel the urge to react immediately, ask yourself, will these words improve this moment or only satisfy my emotions? That one question may change the way people see you, because at the end, people do not follow the loudest voice. They follow the person who brings calm into chaos, who listens before judging, who thinks before speaking, who remains steady when everyone else loses control. That kind of presence cannot be created in a single day. It is built through patience, through self-control, and through the courage to remain silent when silence is the wiser choice. Perhaps that is the difference between people who chase attention and people who naturally earn respect. More importantly, it may change the way you see yourself. Thank you for staying until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. More videos about psychology, human behavior, emotional intelligence, and self-mastery are coming soon. Remember, the strongest minds are not the loudest. They are the calmest. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.